This is sort of good news, bad news. And it depends on where you sit on the fence. Getting back to the S26 Ultra, some people didn't like the phone. Some people returned theirs because of a display issue. Now, they introduced the privacy thing, and no, privacy shade and display is not coming to the foldable segment for Samsung. But I bring it back to the S26 and why people returned it because of the display is the S25 series has Samsung's M13 OLED panel, a classic, an all-timer OLED panel for Samsung. Samsung has put the M13 OLED panel in iPhones. So essentially, not all, because they had a separate supply. They didn't want to rely 100% on Samsung for displays for their iPhones, but Samsung makes up like 80% of iPhone displays. The display is so good, Apple ordered tens of millions of these M13 OLED panels. The M13 OLED panel, you can find it on the S25 series. Phenomenal display. Samsung has had this new M14 OLED panel that they put on the iPhone 17 series, and everybody's like, wow, this is a fantastic panel. Samsung Galaxy lovers like myself said, boy, I cannot wait for this M14 OLED panel to get on these new S26 series. And then they jacked it all up with the privacy thing, privacy shade. They had to manipulate the pixels to get the privacy display and or privacy shade to work. And depending on who you are, you might not like the way your display looks because it is slightly different. It's not, some people say it's fuzzy. The S26 Ultra display compared to the S25 Ultra display. Some say it's hazy, it's not as detailed, it looks slightly different. And I'm in the boat where it's still a great display, still bright, beautiful, nice bold colors, but it's just like not as good as the S25 Ultra. And we're going to get back to this because the new foldables have something to do with this. If the S25 Ultra's display, the M13 OLED panel, is like 100, like this is the best OLED panel I've ever seen in my life. Now, the S26 Ultra, I would put it at like 95. I think it's like 95% if this is like 100%, right? So you can see it's close, but I'm having a hard time putting my finger on it. But I was using this earlier, and I was like, damn, I think this display is better. I won't use it for a day or two, then I come back and use it. I'm like, whoa, this display, I can tell the difference. But when you put them next to each other, maybe like 1% fuzzy, whatever. Let's get into the foldables. So where do the foldables come into this? Well, Samsung is going to put the M13 OLED panel, the same panel that's in this S25 Ultra, into the upcoming foldable series. So you're going to get the M13 OLED panel in the Z Fold 8 and the M13 OLED panel in the Z Flip 8. Now, why would they not put the latest and greatest OLED panel in their latest and greatest phones and their most expensive phone they sell, minus the trifold, is the Z Fold series? Why wouldn't they put their latest and greatest panel, the best they have on the market? Why would they not put that in their most expensive phone that they sell, right? You would think if you have a $2,000 phone, you'd want to spec it out, right? Well, we don't know the absolute specific answer to that question, but one aspect you can look at it from one lens, one angle, is cost reasons. So, for one thing, if you have a large consumer base that purchased, let's go back to panels. If a lot of your consumers can't tell the difference between these two panels right here, the S25 Ultra and the S26 Ultra, well then, why does Samsung need to put the latest and greatest on the new foldables? Or if people are saying, like myself, you know what, the S25 Ultra with the M13 OLED panel, there's something about it, it's just maybe slightly better than the new S26 Ultra with the M14 OLED panel. Well, if people can't tell the difference, and some of those people think the M13 OLED panel is better, then I can see why Samsung might put it in the new foldables. And a third reason, cost. So everybody knows, well, you might not. I put a video out. There was a news that came out a couple weeks ago. Samsung is in emergency management crisis mode, meaning they're all the executives working in the Samsung, not just the Samsung mobile department, but the entire company. Now they can't fly business class. They have to fly coach with all of us, right? They're trying to cut costs. Their revenue is getting smaller quarter on quarter, year on year. So Samsung has to drastically find cost cutting measures. And I think that's the major determining factor of why they would put an M13 OLED panel in these new foldables, because they need to maximize that profit margin for products, quite frankly. I think that's the major determining factor. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to tell the difference. And just to let you know, the Z Fold 8 and Z Flip 8 are not, I repeat, are not going to have the privacy display or indoor privacy shade. The pixels that they put in, how they had to manipulate these pixels for the S26 series, at the moment, they cannot be bendable, right? You cannot bend them. Now, in the future, I'm sure Samsung will, come out with the technology to where you can actually, because remember, the foldables actually fold. So you have to bend those pixels. Plus, it looks different from, if you have your privacy shade turned on your S26 Ultra, it looks different from the different angles. Well, if you fold something, it's going to mess up and change the way you're looking at your display. So in the future, they'll probably introduce privacy shade on the foldable segment. But at the moment, I think the reason why they're not putting their best OLED panel on here is to save money, and people are not going to be able to tell the difference. They may say they can tell the difference, but I guarantee you, if you had an M14 OLED panel and an M13 OLED panel side by side outside of a phone, right, you would not be able to tell the difference. You just wouldn't. They're both fantastic, and I think this is why they're making this decision, is to save them a little money, right? It all comes down to money. It all comes down to money. So, I see why they're making that decision. Now, I've seen a lot of people online blasting Samsung for this, and quite frankly, I just think, and I get it, you want the latest and greatest. And let me mention this: the only real difference, if visually, if you cannot tell the difference between these two OLED panels, the main difference between these two OLED panels, and I'm sure the M14 gets, like, I don't know, I'm just bringing this number up out of nowhere, I'm sure it gets 14% brighter, and it has some like under the table, like fine details where it does have its advantages over the previous M13 OLED panel. But the main difference, the main thing where users would be able to tell a difference is in power consumption. The M14 OLED panel uses 74% less power to keep it powered on than the M13 OLED panel. So the panel itself is much more energy efficient than the previous year. Visually, there's really not that much of a difference. But behind the scenes, under the hood, it just uses less power to power on that panel, which in turn gives you better battery life. When Pixel switched to the M14 OLED panel in the Pixel 10 series, battery life is not drastically better, but I could tell a noticeable difference in battery life from the Pixel 10 series to the Pixel 9 series. And that's because, well, not the only reason, but Google did put the M14 OLED panel in the Pixel 10 series. And the Pixel 9 series has the M13 OLED panel. Samsung makes OLED panels for almost everybody. They're that good at it. So, look, they got to turn a profit. They have shareholders that demand a profit every quarter, every year. So they got to do what they got to do. And again, I don't think anybody's going to notice. Right? I just don't. So I see why they're doing it. I don't think they deserve all the flack that they're getting online. I certainly don't think that. But let me get out of here. It's getting late. Pushing an hour right about now. So I do appreciate the time. Please subscribe to the eSIMstudios YouTube channel. I'm going to do a giveaway tomorrow. So if you are new to the channel, I do giveaways maybe once or twice a week. So I'll do one tomorrow. And you gotta have two things to win. You gotta be subscribed to the channel, and you need to watch live so you can enter. And I'll do the drawing live on air. When I make it fair, nice and easy. I have a StreamYard giveaway tool that I put up on screen just like this. Make it nice and fair. But you gotta subscribe and you gotta be present to win. So we'll do a giveaway tomorrow. Tomorrow's Good Friday. We'll do Good Giveaway Friday tomorrow. So appreciate the time. Hope everybody has a enjoyable but safe evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Is this thing